Hello, what's going on everybody? My name is Mike Brown, aka ReviewKingMB, and in continuing my tribute to Wes Craven, I decided to add Vampire in Brooklyn, which is a 1995 horror film that is obviously directed by Wes Craven. It was written, surprisingly, by not only Eddie Murphy himself, but his brother, Charlie Murphy. Yes, that Charlie Murphy. The plot of this movie is we meet Eddie Murphy as Maximilian, who is a vampire that was on this boat or a ship with a bunch of the crew. He kills everybody on the boat, and the boat crashes. He's in Brooklyn. The first thing he wants to do is to find a bride. So he sets his sights on Angela Bassett, who plays a detective. Her and her partner are trying to figure out what's going on. These killings going on in the city. They're trying to figure it out because your first thought isn't that there's a vampire in Brooklyn, right? For anybody wondering, why are you reviewing this movie as a tribute to Wes Craven? One, I've never fully watched this movie. I've seen parts of it on TV over the years, but I've never sat down and watched it from beginning to end and really saw the whole thing. So here was an excuse to do so. My curiosity was too high about this film that I said, let me just sit down and watch this. After watching it, what happened? What? Really? I can't believe the people involved with this and this movie got made. Wes Craven, who knows why he did a movie like this? Maybe it had something to do with him wanting to work with Eddie Murphy, because at the time Eddie Murphy was a pretty big deal. He was a huge success in the 80s and even the early 90s, and I think he thought, wow, somebody as comedic and successful as Eddie Murphy wanting to do a horror movie, a vampire movie, that sounds like a challenge. Actually, this was an Eddie Murphy Productions. I guess he had a production studio. Who knew? This was the last one to be produced by his studio. Maybe Eddie Murphy was the one who said, if I'm going to do a horror movie, I'm going to get one of the best to do it. Wes Craven. So that makes sense. Wes Craven did say, though, that the biggest problem making this movie for him was working with Eddie Murphy, because Eddie Murphy wanted to play this character straight. And maybe he went into it thinking it was going to be more comedy-based. That's a huge problem with this movie, because Eddie Murphy, he does play it straight. You could say, well, what's wrong with him wanting to try something new or try something more serious or scary? There's nothing wrong with that. I actually commend him for wanting to play a vampire and play it straight. The problem is that there's too many bullshit going on around it. If he wants to play straight, then why do we have these scenes of him also dressing up in costume, pretending to be a preacher or pretending to be some robber guy? Like, I get it. Eddie Murphy is very talented. He can be a chameleon and jump into other characters and do it. But this wasn't the movie for him to display that. He's done that countless times in many movies before this and after this. I don't understand why they did it here. It's really just an excuse to get Eddie Murphy to play dress up and play all these characters. I didn't understand that. The scenes with him being a vampire, I'd rather watch that than any of the other stuff he was doing. Angela Bassett as Rita, the detective who's on this case and also being stalked by Eddie Murphy. Angela Bassett's fine. There's nothing wrong with her. It is interesting to see her, watch her play a damsel in distress almost, or somebody who is being stalked, because I'm more used to her being stronger or even sometimes playing an evil role. She's good at that. I was surprised that there was a moment where she did get turned into a vampire. Spoilers, who gives a fuck? So that does happen, and I think I liked her performance as that vampire the best. Alan Payne is her partner. He was alright. He was fine. He seemed like a normal, straightforward guy. At the beginning, they were just partners, nothing more than that. And then all of a sudden, in the middle of the movie, they fall in love with each other. Or they were in love with each other this whole time and just now revealed it. That seemed like it was completely out of left field and out of nowhere. But okay, fine. Kadeem Hardison plays Julius, he basically becomes Eddie Murphy's bitch. At the very beginning, Eddie Murphy not turns him into a vampire, he just makes him a ghoul or something like that. You see him like decaying throughout the film. He's the comic relief. He's the guy, he's the sidekick who's supposed to make everybody laugh because Eddie Murphy wanted to play this straight. And for the most part, he's annoying. I'm not saying I hated him. There was maybe one or two scenes where he made me chuckle, but still, I could have done without him in this movie. John Witherspoon as Silas, he's fine. I like John Witherspoon as an actor in general, so okay, fine. The biggest problem is what Wes Craven said. It's not what Eddie Murphy said. Eddie Murphy tried to say the biggest problem with this movie was his wig, and that's what threw people off. No, Eddie, the biggest problem with this movie is that it doesn't know what it wants to be. It doesn't know if it wants to be a straight horror movie, scary, because it has those moments, or if it just wants to be a comedy. You can't really, you can do both, but not like this. You can't have the jokes be so shoehorned in, so random, and you have to try harder, dude. This is one of the lamer Wes Craven movies I've ever seen, but I don't blame him. He didn't write it, he didn't produce it, he was just a guy hired to do a job. It's really not his fault. Eddie Murphy, I think this was the beginning of the end of his career as far as quality, as far as credibility. What can you do? Obviously, I didn't care for this movie. I didn't hate it, but I didn't care for it. Not that good. Anyways, guys, let me know in the comments below, what do you think of Vampire in Brooklyn? Am I being too harsh on it? Like, comment, subscribe. Later!